Welcome to where we will dive into the epic story of Genghis Khan, the man who conquered the world. Join us to learn about the rise of the legendary warrior, his invincible empire, and the lasting impact he left on history. Ready to discover the story of the greatest conqueror of all time? Let's get started. I don't even know how to start this. I guess I'll just go straight into it. I'm Genghis. Yeah, that Genghis. Temujin, if you want to get technical. The guy who united the Mongol tribes, raised cities, took kingdoms, and had more battle scars than birthdays. I've seen betrayal from generals, sieges that lasted years, arrows in my damn neck, and still kept moving. But none of that prepared me for the crap storm that was my marriage to Borte. You think leading 100,000 warriors into enemy territory is hard? Try coming home to your wife smiling sweetly while she's hiding a royal hostage in your backyard tent and gaslighting you like you're a drunk horse boy who wandered into the wrong girl. We were married young. Mongol customs, yada yada. Political alliance. She was sharp-tongued, fiery. Sure, I like that. I'm not a delicate flower. But early on, I started noticing little cracks. She'd vanish for days, saying she was visiting her cousins on the steppe. No biggie. Until I realized she didn't have any cousins on the steppe. I remember the first real red flag. I came back from a brutal campaign against the Jin dynasty. We lost good men. I was exhausted, bloodied, mentally wrecked, and she greeted me like I was some merchant bringing yak butter. No hug. No, how was the carnage? Nothing. Just a passive-aggressive, took you long enough. I chalked it up to her being overwhelmed. She hated war. Married a warlord. Go figure. Then the rumors started. Whispers from my scouts. A strange man seen near her quarters. Not a Mongol. Looked refined, one said. Too clean to be one of ours. I laughed it off at first. I mean, who would dare? I'm Genghis F ***ing Khan. ***. But something in my gut twisted. You ever come back from a 1,000-mile ride across Asia and find your own camp feels like enemy territory? So yeah, I ignored it for a while. Denial is a hell of a drug, even for a man who's executed people for breathing suspiciously in his direction. But the weirdness kept piling up. One night, I came back early from a regional council, left Subutai in charge of the petty disputes, and when I pushed open the flap to our private yurt, I swear I saw her jump like a goat in a wolf's shadow. She was wearing perfume. Not the usual earthy stuff either. This was some imported Silk Road nonsense. Jasmine or whatever. I don't even know where she got it. My guess is one of the Chinese tributary states. I asked her who had been in the tent. She scoffed. Said it was just her attending maidens, and that I must be paranoid from too much conquering. That didn't sit right. And neither did the half-eaten plate of dates. Borte hates dates. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I had one of my trusted guards, Joki, that Joki, my eldest, more on him later, watch the tent when I left for a 3-day ride. Turns out I didn't even need 3 days. On the first night, Joki stormed into my war tent looking pale. Father, he said, I know you told me to observe, not interfere, but he's still in there. He. Not a servant. Not a cousin. Not a noblewoman. A man. I rode back without a word, heart pounding harder than it did when I ambushed the Merkits. I burst into the yurt, hand on my blade, ready for anything, and there he was. A foreign-looking man, soft hands, silk robes, and that same jasmine scent. Just sitting there on my furs like he owned the damn place. He looked at me. Calm. Not afraid. He smirked. Borte stood beside him. She didn't look surprised. She didn't even try to lie. Just said, it's not what you think. That sentence has ended empires. So she says, it's not what you think. And I'm just standing there, hand on my sword, breathing like a war drum. My mind's racing. Is he a spy? An assassin? Some emissary who got way too comfortable? Then he stands up, stretches like he lives there, and introduces himself. Prince Ashit, he says. Armenian. Supposedly sent by his father as a political offering. That's what Borte tells me after 5 full seconds of awkward silence where I considered whether cutting off his tongue or his hands would send the stronger message. I asked her why I wasn't informed. She gave me this smug little shrug and said, You've been so busy, I didn't want to bother you with minor court matters. Minor. A foreign prince in my home. In my wife's yurt. Unannounced. Secret. Eating dates. Wearing her perfume. Sleeping on my furs. Oh, and then she drops this gem. He's here under my protection. Your protection? You mean the woman who fainted at the sight of a goat giving birth last spring? Suddenly you're running a diplomatic guest house out of our tent? I kept my cool. Barely. Told Asha to leave now. He raised an eyebrow. Looked at Borte. She nodded. That nod broke me more than 10 years of war ever did. It was the look people give each other when they've shared more than just words. Trust me, I've seen it across the battlefield, between lovers, brothers, traitors. I didn't say another word. I left the yurt. Didn't even go to the war council that night. Just sat outside, staring at the fire, thinking. I've survived betrayal before, but this one had my own name on it. So, after that circus, I expected her to come crawling with apologies. Maybe even some attempt at damage control. I mean, what kind of woman hides a foreign prince in her marital yurt and acts like she's hosting a damn tea party? Instead, she doubled down. Next morning, she struts into my command tent like nothing happened. No shame, no remorse, just irritation, like I was the one who embarrassed her. You humiliated a guest, she snapped. That's not how diplomacy works, Temujin. Temujin. Not my husband. Not Khan. Not even love. Just my damn birth name. Like I was some fool she hired to clean her saddle. I said, a guest? You mean the man who's been nesting in my tent like a broody hen? And then she hits me with the ultimate emotional javelin. You've always been paranoid. You never trusted me, not from the beginning. I couldn't believe it. This woman, who's been acting shady for months, vanishing, hiding a literal prince, now she's turning it around on me? You're imagining things. He's just a political hostage. Why don't you ever believe me? I'm the Khan of the largest empire ever seen, and I'm getting gaslit in my own war tent by a woman who lies smoother than a Chinese diplomat on payday. To make it worse, she started dragging our history into it. You were never fully present, always off fighting, conquering. Maybe I needed someone who was here, someone who saw me. Oh, so now it's my fault. My conquests, my legacy, my duty, suddenly it's an inconvenience to her yurt-based social life? I don't remember much of the rest of that conversation. My vision kind of blurred from the rage. But I do remember thinking one thing. Maybe this is how empires fall. Not with war, but with lies, perfume, and a smug prince named Ashet. After the gaslight session from Borte, I needed air. I needed something solid. Truth, stone, steel. Anything but silk and lies. So I called for Joki, my eldest. My, almost certainly not biological son. Yeah, we'll get into that later, Reddit. One nightmare at a time. He comes in, stands there stiff like a soldier, but his eyes, they were soft. Pitying. Which pissed me off more than anything. I asked him straight. How long has he been here? He hesitated. Too long. Then said, about 2 months. 2 months. Ashet the delightfully moist had been prancing around my camp, eating my food, sitting near my throne, and no one thought that maybe I should know? Then Joki drops the second bomb. Mother said not to tell you. She said you'd overreact. Said you were too stressed already. This woman was managing my stress levels by sneaking princes into my house. That's like curing a headache with a hammer. I asked if he knew anything else. And here's the kicker. He'd seen them holding hands. Not bowing. Not shaking hands like diplomats. Holding hands. Soft. Familiar. Tender. He looked at me, then away. Said, I didn't want to believe it either, father. The air just left my lungs. Like I'd taken a spear to the ribs. I'm the great Khan. I rode across the Gobi with nothing but a bow and a dream. I burned cities. I tamed nations. And now I'm sitting in my own command tent, realizing I've been played like a flute by the woman I trusted most. Borte had taken my name, my crown, my son, and now my dignity. And Joki, he looked like he was 10 years old again, waiting for me to tell him everything would be okay. But I didn't, because I wasn't sure it would be. So yeah, after Joki dropped that bomb, I didn't sleep. I just sat in the dark, turning over every memory I had of Borte. When we were teenagers, and she stood by me as I rose from dirt-poor exile to Khan of everything east of the Caspian. I remembered the first time I gave her a horse of her own. The time she held my hand after my mother died. The time she whispered, "You are more than the steppe," in my ear. And I realized something terrifying. She knew exactly who I was. And she still thought I wouldn't do anything. So the next morning, I walked to the yurt. Not running. Not yelling. Calm, quiet. I brought 4 of my most loyal men. One carried a torch. The rest carried silence. Borte was inside. So was Ashet. They were sitting cross-legged, sipping tea, like this was some garden pavilion in Samarkand. She looked up and gave me the fakest smile I've ever seen. Back already? She asked. I didn't answer. I just said, take your things and go. Ashit had the audacity to speak first. You're making a mistake. I turned to him and said, no, I'm correcting one. He stood up like he was going to plead, but before he could say anything else, I nodded to my men. The torch dropped onto the edge of the yurt. Silk burns fast and quiet. Just a whoosh and a crackle, and suddenly everything smelled like smoke and betrayal. Borte screamed, not in fear, but in rage. She lunged at me, hit me in the chest. You think this makes you strong? She spat. You're pathetic. Always were. Just a scared boy playing king. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, then consider this my coronation. Ashit ran. Borte tried to. I didn't stop them. I wanted them to live. To watch everything burn from the outside, like I'd done from the inside for months. I didn't kill them. That would have been easy. But I took away the thing they clung to most. My silence. My tolerance. My loyalty. And after that night, I took every memory I had of Borte and buried it deeper than any grave I ever dug. The next morning, the camp smelled like wet smoke and bad decisions. I'd ordered the whole yurt reduced to ash. Fabrics, bedding, tapestries, her gifted jewelry from Ashit, even that carved wooden fox she claimed was from her childhood. Gone. I didn't want a single thing left that reminded me of her or the lies she curled herself in at night. People were quiet around me. Too quiet. Not out of fear. My army had seen blood, seen war, seen cities fall. But this was different. This was personal. And when the Khan burns down his own yurt, word spreads like wildfire. Whispers bloomed like fungus. Did you hear what happened? She brought a foreign prince into the Khan's bed. Is Joki really his son? What if the Khan loses it completely? I heard them. I didn't care. Let them talk. Because I was losing it. Not just my temper. Not just my marriage. But my sense of reality. I kept asking myself over and over. How the hell did I not see it? All those nights she said she was praying. All those sudden headaches. All those trips to the shaman. Hell, I paid for Ashit's horse feed. Every memory I pulled apart had some thread of betrayal woven into it. My life had become a web, and the spider sitting in the center wore my wife's face. That night, I sat alone on a dune above the camp. The stars stretched overhead, same as always. But they felt colder. I remembered something my mother told me when I was 10, just after my father was poisoned. Even a river can turn against you if you build your bridge on lies. At the time, I didn't understand it. Now, it was tattooed across my damn soul. I realized I had a decision to make. Not about Borte. She was dead to me in all the ways that mattered. No, the decision was about Joki. My son. Maybe. Maybe not. But he was watching me. The men were watching me. And if I crumbled now, I'd lose more than a wife. I'd lose everything. I didn't sleep that night. Not from guilt. Nah, that left with the smoke. But because the question kept stabbing me from the inside. Is Joki even mine? He was born not long after Borte was rescued from those raiders. I remember that time like a recurring nightmare, my hands still bleeding from carving through the men who took her, and then she returns, pregnant. She swore he was mine, swore it through tears, swore it while holding my hand to her belly like some sacred bond. And back then, I wanted to believe it. Needed to. A man trying to unite the steppe couldn't afford to be seen as childless. So I raised Joki, loved him like my own, trained him, promoted him. But now, after Prince Moist and the smiling lies, that doubt slithered right back in. So I called Joki. Alone. No guards. No advisors. Just father and son under the same moon that had watched this mess unfold. He sat across from me, posture perfect like I taught him. But his eyes, God, his eyes, they looked like someone waiting for their own execution. I didn't waste time. Are you my son? Silence. He looked down, picked at the leather wrap on his wrist. Then he said something I didn't expect. Does it matter? Boom. Just like that, my gut twisted. I wanted to scream, of course it matters. But the words died in my throat. Because, yeah, what if it didn't? He'd fought for me. Led campaigns. Broken enemy lines. Held my banner like it was his second spine. He never disobeyed, never rebelled. Always carried himself like the heir of a Khan. And maybe, just maybe, he'd been wondering the same thing his whole life. Whether I saw him as mine. So I looked at him and said, if you betray me, I'll know. And I'll deal with you like I deal with all traitors. But until that day, You're my son, and you carry my name. Don't make me regret it." He nodded. No tears. No dramatic speech. Just a quiet acceptance. A soldier's nod. That was the moment I realized. Jokey didn't need blood to be my son. He needed truth. Something his mother never gave either of us. If I thought the worst was over, I was a damn fool. 3 days after the fire, I summoned my war council, generals, clan leaders, family heads, the men who'd helped build my empire from bones and horsehide. I expected loyalty, or at least quiet support. Instead, I walked into a tent full of shifting eyes, nervous coughs, and that one cousin who always smells like fermented goat milk. Dado was first to speak, my cousin on my mother's side, always the cautious type. "Khan, we respect your personal life, but..." Borte was well-liked. "This situation has made some uneasy." "Uneasy?" I repeated, like I'd accidentally dropped a goat in the soup. Then came Subutai, my fiercest general, trying to polish a turd. "Some of the northern clans are asking questions about Jokey's bloodline, about succession, about legitimacy." There it was. Not grief, not loyalty. They didn't care that Borte brought a foreign prince into my bedchambers. They cared that it might weaken the line of succession. I stared at them. All of them. The same bastards who cheered me on when I burned down Zhongdu, who chanted my name after every victory. And now they were sweating over royal paternity like gossiping merchants. So I stood, slammed my palm on the table, and said, "You want to talk legitimacy? Fine." I unified the tribes. I wrote laws where there were none. I built roads through deserts and turned enemies into ghosts. I am legitimacy. Dead silence. Then I added, "If any man here doubts Jokey's right to rule after me, speak now." Nobody did. Not because they didn't think it, but because they knew what I'd do. And still, behind the silence, I could feel the shift, like cracks spidering beneath frozen ice. They would obey, yes, but the seed of doubt had been planted. By Borte. Not just in our home. In the Empire. That night, I sat by myself, rereading my own laws, the ones I had written with my own damn hands years ago. And I realized something brutal. Borte hadn't just betrayed me. She'd set fire to the future. After that disaster of a council meeting, I didn't sleep for 2 nights. I rode out alone into the steppe, just me and the wind. No guards, no advisors, not even a saddle. I needed to remember what it felt like before all of this. Before empires. Before betrayal. Before Borte. Out there, the stars felt bigger. The silence louder. And in that stillness, I realized something. I've been building an empire on emotion. Loyalty? That was personal. Family? That was messy. Love? That got me burned. So I made a decision. No more of that. When I rode back to camp, I gathered my scribes and declared a new law, one that would shake the bones of every noble in the empire. Succession is earned, not inherited. No more assuming sons will take their father's place just because of blood. From now on, heirs must be named, not assumed. Merit, loyalty, strength, strategy. That's what counts. The council lost their minds. One idiot tried to object. I reminded him that trees grow silent when heads roll. And Jokey? He didn't say anything. He just bowed. Quietly. A little too quietly. I could tell the new law hit him like an axe to the chest. He wanted to scream, "What about me?" But he didn't. That boy had learned restraint. From me. I didn't say he was not the heir. I just made damn sure he'd have to prove it. You see, Borte had made my family a vulnerability. So I turned it into a weapon. By the end of that week, every region in the empire knew. The Khan doesn't kneel to blood. The Khan kneels to no one. Funny how a broken heart turned me into a better ruler. Or maybe just a colder one. Either way, I stopped building on love. I started building on fear. So, as if the universe hadn't thrown enough fire my way, Borte decided to make a comeback. Yeah, you read that right. About 2 months after I declared the new succession law, while I was deep in preparations for a campaign in the east, word came that Borte was approaching the camp. Alone, no guards, no fanfare, just her sharp tongue and that same wicked smile. The messenger who told me looked like he wanted to puke. "She's asking to see you, Khan." I stared at the horizon, imagining her sashaying in like some petty noblewoman at a feast, demanding her seat at the table. I wasn't sure if I wanted to laugh or burn the entire camp down again. Against every instinct, I agreed to meet her. She arrived at dusk, her eyes bright with what she called regret. But I saw something else, a desperation so raw it almost made me pity her. she said. Genghis, the empire is unfinished without me, without my name, my blood. I looked her dead in the eye and replied, the empire is exactly what I make it, Borte, not what you pretend it is. She tried to play the victim, weaving lies about betrayal, about how Ashit had manipulated her, how she'd been trapped in a cage of her own making. But I saw through it all. The lies had changed form, and I realized something terrifying. Some betrayals aren't just acts, they're curses. The Eastern campaign was brutal. Not because of the enemies, though they fought like wild wolves, but because of the stakes. With Borte gone and whispers about Joki swirling louder than ever, I needed to see if the boy could truly carry the weight of the empire. If he was worthy of the name Khan. We crossed mountains and rivers, burning villages, taking prisoners, and breaking siege lines. But I wasn't just watching the battlefield, I was watching him. Joki fought like a man possessed. His sword struck with precision, his orders clear and sharp. He was no spoiled prince, he was a warrior earning every breath. One night, during a skirmish near a narrow pass, our forces were nearly overwhelmed. Joki took command when my scouts were delayed. He rallied the men, set traps, and led a counterattack that turned the tide. That victory saved the campaign, and my faith in him. Afterward, I pulled him aside. You fought well. You have the strength. But strength alone won't hold an empire together. He nodded, understanding that this was just the beginning. That campaign changed everything. It wasn't just about blood anymore. It was about proving yourself when the world doubts you. And Joki? He began proving. When I returned from the Eastern campaign, the mood around the court was different. Joki had returned not just as my son, but as a commander who'd saved our armies. I could see the council's grudging respect, though their smiles were tight, and their eyes still flickered with doubt. Thada was the first to approach me in private. Khan, Joki has proven himself in battle. His leadership is undeniable. I nodded but warned him. Respect earned in war is fragile. It can shatter like ice beneath a horse's hoof. Still, the council began to shift. Old rivals softened, and some who'd whispered betrayal now spoke Joki's name with caution. But the real challenge was not politics or war, it was healing. Healing from Borde's poison. Healing from the scars of betrayal. I caught Joki alone once, staring at the stars. Do you feel it too? I asked. The weight. He looked at me with fierce honesty. Every day, Khan. But I carry it for us all. That night, I realized something important. Maybe family isn't just about blood or lies. Maybe it's about who stands beside you when everything burns. Just when I thought the storm had passed, Borte's shadow crept back in, this time with venom. Rumors spread like wildfire. Whispers that I had lost my mind, that I was softening, that Joki wasn't fit to rule. But more dangerous was the poison Borte planted, accusations that Joki was a bastard, unworthy of the throne, and that I was blinded by my own anger. One day, a messenger arrived with a letter from a neighboring tribe's chieftain. The message was clear: your family's dishonor threatens the alliances we forged in blood. Choose your heirs wisely, or lose everything. It was a direct threat. I was furious. Not just at Borte, but at the fragility of trust and how easily lies could spread and destroy what we built. So I summoned my council once more. If you doubt Joki, you doubt me, I said, voice like thunder. I built this empire with my hands, bled for it with my heart, and I will defend it, and my family, against liars and cowards. No one dared to challenge me again. But inside, I was aching. Betrayal doesn't just burn outward, it scorches the soul. After all the battles, betrayals, and broken promises, I sit here under the endless sky of the Mongolian steppe, trying to make sense of it all. Borte bitchy, cunning, liar, she shattered my world. But from those shards, I forged something stronger, an empire not built on fragile trust or soft love, but on iron will and harsh truth. I learned that love can be a weapon and a weakness. That betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from the ones closest to you. But I also learned this. You don't get to choose who loves you or who lies to you. What you can choose is how you rise after the fall. I chose to rise. I chose to rewrite the rules. To demand proof, loyalty, strength, not empty words or cheap lies. If you're reading this, stuck in a nightmare of betrayal, here's my advice. Don't drown in anger, channel it. Don't cling to the past, build your future. And never, ever let someone else's lies define your worth. I'm Genghis Khan. I conquered worlds, but the hardest battle was conquering my own broken heart. Stay strong, friends. The steppe is wide, and the horizon never ends.